will be then placed in or housed in a different branch or offices, and therefore there's no continuous of pipeline from in terms of the IP churned out from the researchers or from the university. So when you don't have that clear communication from the university side, where the Technology Transfer Office plays a vital role in communicating or reaching out to the industry. So the industry is not well informed of what's available. So this also causes the lack of confidence from the industry side, because they still have not gained the trust or the confidence in our homegrown IPs compared to foreign IPs. So this is, I would say this is the missing gap.
Is that a mismatch of expectations and needs between both divides?
Yes, definitely, because both worlds they have different mindset, different expectation. From the academia side, they are very research driven. Okay, but it's good to see that now they are more market driven, they are going into applied research. Whereas from the industry side, we tend to look at more of, they try to look into into identifying profits, innovation that has commercial potential. So yes, definitely there is a gap or mismatch in that sense.
Prof. Fauzi, is it fair to say that university has lots of ideas, but they tend to be focused on getting into like top tier publications instead of actually getting those ideas into the market?
No, this issue is not about university alone. It is about the perception of the people, perception from the stakeholders. Traditionally, yes, university are producing talent for the needs of the industry and community. But let me briefly identify the gaps. For developed Western countries, casual communication, like Johan mentioned, is very highly regarded. Luncheon talk, joint venture, research collaboration, research contract, very high. And university is a prime source for technology advancement. But coming back to Malaysia, the highest activity is training, consultation. Lack of that. Just for information, university without high impact publication will go nowhere. Why we know Oxford, Cambridge, Stanford? Many of us have never been there, even for just one class. But from where we know that? We know that through the expertise that belong to the professors, the contribution from the innovative products to the community, to the whole world. So we cannot say split this. Okay, university have to tone down. No, publication is the way forward. In fact, one of the criteria for developed nation is how much IP. How much publication, high impact publication. So, our Ministry of Higher Education, Ministry of Kementerian Pengajian Tinggi Malaysia now, awarded 14 highly cited Malaysian scientists. And why we have to do that? Because we appreciate that. Majority of the product that well known in the market from the Western developed countries are through university R&D. That is why we cannot split this, and we need to enhance that.
And a lot of discussion about academia industry is always people's impression that there is none or there is low, but most people don't really know. So I think this is one of the points that we need to develop further, in the sense that how do we communicate the successful collaborations, because a lot of people don't know about it. I mean, Professor Fauzi's university has the top 2 centers in the world in terms of Scopus ranking. Yes, his own membrane research center, and the other one is on the vibration center. I'm not saying first in Asia, I'm saying first in the world. But how many people know that? Hardly any. So I think there is a need to communicate the successful ventures and achievement of our universities. Always when we talk about university, we say, oh, we are number 200, 300. Maybe that is not the way to present it to people you want to convince, yeah? Because there are strength, there are pockets of strength within each universities. And we should actually promote this strength through the industry. And I think this communication of what we have achieved are probably not done very well by the universities, because by nature, they are not a marketing organization. But there are private partners, the GLCs are also not doing it. I mean, there are so many GLCs in UTM, for example, since it is the only university represented here. But you hardly read about it in the papers. Yeah? So I think the first challenge would be to communicate and to see the glass as half full rather than half empty. I mean, we have done a lot. I mean, if you look at our history, our industry, government, research institute collaboration in our oil palm industry is world class. Our industry, our oil palm industry would not have developed the way it has been, what they have achieved, if the government, the private sectors, the research institutes, and the entrepreneurs actually work together and develop the industry as a whole. Yeah? So, and people are aware of this, but when we talk about the oil palm industry, people never mention the contribution of the research institutes and the universities. So I think this is an issue of communication. Right?
I think you mentioned this is an issue of communication, also from the industry perspective, issue of confidence towards our products. I have to take this discussion for the next commercial break, but we'll be back shortly, so don't go away. Welcome back to the 11th Merdeka Award Roundtable. Our topic of discussion is enhancing collaboration between university and industry. And earlier we talked about how the private sector should take a bigger role in creating that synergy. Johan, what are your thoughts?
Well, I agree, Dr. Halim, that, success breeds success, and maybe some needs to be communicated better. But even coming back to this point, I think you had this conversation with Dr. Fauzi about whether incentives need to change, because I do still think that there still needs to be a balance. Universities, at the end of the day, yes, they are centers of research, but they're also, one of their key roles or key product is to produce talent. And I think that is where sometimes we struggle, because I think local universities there is still a perception issue, partly due to the perception of employers on our local graduates. And you see it that even though unemployment in Malaysia is generally low at 3%, but when you dissect that, in the youth unemployment is actually double digits, because most of the unemployed are amongst the youth, and based on tracer studies, the ministry says potentially up to 25% of our graduates are not getting employment within 6 months. I think there needs to be more being done to ensure that our graduates meet the needs of industry. And I think sometimes when you see private universities, obviously they're profit driven, and so they have to ensure that they produce talents that parents are willing to pay for, and I think they're quite focused on ensuring that they meet industry needs. You also see some of the GLCs, which are quite industry-based. So if you think of MMU, I think they've established themselves as obviously a university that really meets the needs of the ICT and telecommunications industry, both from talent production and also from research. And of course, UTP, I think is also definitely a benchmark, University Teknologi Petronas. I think they're very much geared towards meeting the needs of the oil and gas industry. I mean, one simple thing in terms of a mismatch between industry and universities, many companies say, look, if you want to provide your young talent with good exposure into industry requirements, you need to give them a decent length of internship as industry exposure. Most universities now provide our engineers with probably, 10 weeks or 3 months, whereas at least UTP distances itself, it provides 7 months as an internship for its engineering undergraduates, ensuring that they get really good exposure. They're not just doing copy and photocopying, they're working on real projects, which really enables them to be ready. We need more and more of our universities really producing top
We have
talent
5
that meets
research
industry.
universities. How are they contributing to into the industrialization or commercialization of products?
Okay, just to add on to what Dato mentioned and Johan, in terms of reaching out or identifying the right talents or the expertise or the pipelines that these universities have and building the confidence of the industry, we need a neutral platform. So that's where government initiatives like PlaTCOM Ventures, the National IP Commercialization Arm, that facilitates end-to-end facilitation. We have AIM Steinby that sources for industry experts. So it's more like a matchmaking of industry experts. Then we have PPRN, we have Cerium and Fraunhofer. So what I'm trying to say is these entities will work or will be ideal in terms of identifying the pipelines from the universities and establishing the confidence or the networks with the industry, because they are well positioned to do the outreach for these universities. Sometimes you can't blame the universities because you can't just say, oh, they're research driven, they don't know. Maybe the outreach isn't there. So you need platforms such as these initiatives to go out and reach out to the right parties.
I think other issue thing that brings up, you can't compare us with developed countries where they really have huge amounts of resources. I think Malaysia, given the size of our nation and economy, we need probably to, not to say pick winners, but we really need to prioritize our resources. I mean, one initiative that we've done on the electronic sector, again, in terms of promoting industry-academic collaboration, we recognize that electronics is a really big space. So we started off with a conversation in terms of having coordination between MIDA, Ministry of Education, and industry, to then say, okay, well, electronics is a big space, but Malaysia isn't in all spaces of electronics. So MIDA identified, going forward, what are probably the clusters within electronics that we focus on. So, for example, we have wafer fab, we have embedded systems, we have LEDs, we have these radio frequencies. These are some of the key subclusters that Malaysia's industry is working on, and we then need to ensure that our research and collaboration is aligned with our industrial master plans.
There is some criticism saying that our universities are not market-driven enough. Do you agree with that?
Well, one of the issues, if you look at the research and IPs that are coming out of the universities, and you ask industry to pick some of those IPs up and for commercialization, one of the issues is that a lot of the time, in terms of technology readiness, how ready it is, how close it is to commercialization, there still could be a lot of work that needs to be done. So another issue that needs to be looked at is the funding landscape. The funds that are provided to universities to do their research takes them up to a certain level. What about the next steps? All along the way, there's funding that's going to be required. So one of the things the government is doing now is looking at the whole funding landscape. There's a committee that's been established called JKPDA. For short, it's a committee that's looking at the whole funding landscape for research, development, and commercialization. Okay. There are 46 government agencies under 16 different ministries that are giving out funding, grant funding for research, development, and commercialization. So 3 years ago, when this first started, we were looking at how to actually rationalize this to, first of all, reduce duplication, have some focus, look at where the money is going, what happens to it, what sort of outcomes are achieved, and also have a balance between how much goes to basic research, applied research, pre-commercialization, commercialization.
I mean, it sounds like a long and complex process. So I want to understand is, where do local investors usually fall through in that long process? Which part is it that's most critical?
That's a very, very important question. The industry or local investor, they a bit reluctant to fund product development. You see, if basic research costs you 10 ringgit, product development might cost you 100 ringgit. So this product development that needs the contribution from the industry or investors. This is where we are very lacking.
This is a risk appetite.
Yeah. And coming back for a previous question about research university, 5 research university. For information, these 5 research universities contributed to, in terms of return on investment, multi-billion for the last 4 or 5 years. And this again was not, well known or well, received for some reason. If let's say one staff or student sent to overseas to make PhD, it will cost you 1 million to 1.5 million. And with the establishment of research university, in view of becoming a developed nation 2020, we did another 11,475 PhD candidate. Imagine if one PhD that the country needs costs you 1.5 million. How much money the government needs to spend? So with the establishment of this university, we can save a lot of currency exchange. So these 5 research universities contributed to about more than 80% of any patent commercialization products. And we research universities are not only, commercialization research product is very big definition. We are now a solution provider, a package. This is not being again known, very well known, especially in Malaysia. Consultancy also, providing a knowledge to the company is also part and parcel of commercialization. And this was not, taken up. I don't know why.
I think, again, as I mentioned earlier, if you look at the triple helix model, each of the triple helix components have to do their part. Okay. Now, if you look at the policy side, with the new education master plan, I think there is going to be, or it's already started, tremendous change in the overall university ecosystem. I mean, if you look at, I think chapter 2 or one of the chapters in the plan, there will now be different streams for professionals in the universities. You're going to have the research stream, meaning that you join the university to be researchers, and you become professors because of your research. And there's going to be an administration stream, meaning you are professional deans, 4 tracks. And there's the professional stream, meaning that people like you can join the university and become professor even though you don't have a PhD. So I think on the policy side, the government has actually done quite a lot in terms of making it easier for universities to interact professionally with the industry. Now, within the university itself, I think a lot has changed. A lot more can be done, but there are differences between the more established universities